out your front door, and when you get out there, this is what you see. These two prehistoric things look like the sort of bird you don't want to just walk up to and try to threaten. You know from dealing with other large birds that they might jump up, flap their wings in your face, and maybe even kick you. So when you get the chance to ask your neighbor later, you ask him what they are and start to research. He tells you that they're called Sandhill Cranes and that they mate for life. That's all the information he can give you. Your first query to Google is whether it's legal to hunt them. You learn that in some states it is indeed legal to hunt them during certain seasons. There they even have the nickname the ribeye of the sky. Unfortunately, Florida is not one of those states. Therefore, unless you're willing to travel to Tennessee or somewhere like that, you'll never be able to legally find out whether they live up to their nickname. So you decide to check out some more facts about these birds. Courtship. It turns out that Sandhill Cranes have an elaborate courtship ritual. They spread their wings, display, and dance to attract mates. The one who dances the best gets the mate. They do indeed mate for life. However, if one member of a pair gets killed or disappears, the remaining one will find a new mate. Once they pair up, they build a nest. Both the male and female will bring nesting materials to the site. However, the female is the one who arranges the material into a nest shape. This nest is typically placed in the reeds at the edges of marshy areas. However, a non-breeding pair may go ahead and build in a grassy area. Reproduction. Typically, the female crane will lay 2 or 3 eggs in a nest. However, only one of the nestlings typically makes it to the fledgling stage. This makes their reproduction relatively slow. Despite this, there are several pictures on news sites of adult sandhill cranes with more than one baby following them around. Apparently, however, that's rare. Notably, the babies are fluffy and cute. This is sort of rare among birds, which tend to hatch featherless. This cuteness is probably responsible for humans forgetting that they will grow up into loud, aggressive animals. Predation. Despite their imposingly large size, sandhill cranes are the prey of many other animals. Foxes, crows, raccoons, ravens, bobcats, eagles, and owls are among the natural predators that will attack a weak or sick sandhill crane. The young are extra vulnerable. In areas where hunting is allowed, humans are predators to sandhill cranes as well. Predation is not the main threat to the sandhill crane. Instead, it is habitat loss. Developers who fill in the marshes cause a reduction in potential nesting sites. In some areas, this can result in there being nowhere that's good for sandhill crane nesting. Are sandhill cranes endangered? There are some sources that mistakenly say sandhill cranes are endangered. According to the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, this is false. As a whole, the species is of least concern, which is to say it's plentiful. However, there are certain isolated populations that are considered of concern. One such population is in Florida. Another population is its own subspecies. That is the Mississippi sandhill crane, and it's endangered due to the conversion of their habitat from wet pine savanna into standard pine plantations. The cranes near me are neither of these, are not isolated, and show no signs of disappearing anywhere. What cranes eat? Sandhill cranes eat a variety of foods. They like seeds, cultivated grains, berries, and insects. They also eat small mammals and other animals. At least that's what Cornell Lab of Ornithology says. In practice, they love to dig up lawns. Ever since I moved in here, there's been a patch of lawn where nothing seems to grow. I had no idea what was causing it. No matter how much I put down grass seed or even alternatives, this one patch was always bare sand. One day I came out and saw what was causing it. The darn cranes were rooting around and tearing out the grass. I don't know whether they like actual grass roots or the insects around them, but the end result was that everything was torn up and the cranes were happily yelling their joy. Do sandhill cranes ever go away? With a lot of birds, they will eventually go away, no matter how much of a problem they are while they're present. There's no such luck with certain sandhill cranes. In almost all of the United States, they have a migration pattern, a typical north in the summer, south in the winter migration. However, Florida is such a nice place to be that some of them stay here all year. It's noticeable that some of them do migrate and will leave us alone during the summer. However, it doesn't take listening for long to know that some of them are staying. Most sandhill cranes will live at or near water. There's a lake less than a mile away from me, and most of them hang out there. However, a few decide that residential lawns are a better place to stay. This is especially a big problem for lakefront property owners and those who live across a street from a lake. However, some, like the ones I encountered, are willing to go further away from their lake. Such birds may stay all year because they have found a source of food that doesn't dry up in the winter. Are there legal ways to make sandhill cranes leave? Despite my personal preference for a permanent solution, alternatives have to be found. I'm in a residential neighborhood where reckless discharge is a thing. The birds are also protected by Florida law as well as the Migratory Bird Treaty Act. Now, this is Florida. In Florida, if you got enough land and you got enough privacy, there are ways. But I don't have enough land or privacy, so I had to think of what to do. I found out two things. Number one, sandhill cranes are deathly afraid of dogs. Over time, neighbors have moved in and out who had decently large dogs. Kitty corner across the street, someone moved in who had 3 German shepherds. These were all on ropes, but the sandhill cranes didn't realize that. The birds thought the dogs could come and attack. They only had to see the dogs twice, and I had an entire season of peace. The birds stayed away on their own. Then someone moved in next door for a season. He had a St. Bernard that he let run loose. The birds only had to see that dog once, and I had peace for the entire rest of that season. But what happened when there were no dogs around and the cranes actually realized that? For a couple of years I had a lot of trouble. Since I didn't have a dog of my own, I was at a loss as to what to do. Then I unfortunately became very ill, too sick to mow the lawn. I found out that after the grass reached a certain height, the birds wouldn't come anywhere near it. They had been coming to my place instead of next door because my grass had been mowed short. When I couldn't mow it anymore, I got peace and quiet. So that turned out to be the solution. Now I intentionally leave several feet of unmown lawn outside of my bedroom walls. They don't even want to come close enough to yell in my ear through the wall at 6 o'clock in the morning. In fact, they don't land there at any time. Do people like sandhill cranes? It may be a surprise, but some people say they really love sandhill cranes. They even like the sound that they make. Reading threads on Reddit and similar social media sites reveals that a lot of these fans pair the birds with nostalgic childhood memories. Posters also talk about times when they were on vacation as adults and the cranes happened to be around, making their noises. To me, that's sort of like how people who live in certain areas can enjoy foods that make newer arrivals run away. To me, who did not grow up listening to that racket, or seeing those strange creatures stalking the front yard, they're loud, obnoxious birds and not in a fun way. Therefore, I will be leaving my lawn tall so as to deter their encroachment so close to the house. I'll also be keeping my earplugs handy in case they decide that being poked in the belly by tall weeds is not enough of a deterrent. Have you been woken up by these living air raid sirens? Let me know what you think of them in the comments. That's all for now. Subscribe to see more. To get a mug with a sandhill crane showing its glory, just click the link in the description.